Ladies, gentlemen, in an attempt to fast track my financial independence to perhaps one day retire early, on this channel I focus so heavily on the investing side of my life, whether we're talking crypto, stocks, or real estate, and too little do I talk about the expense side of my life. Considering I made 6 figures last year, I spent over $40,000 in my business, whether we're talking cars, whether we're talking credit card debt, whether we're talking living and food expenses. I thought this would be a fun point of reference to compare to your own life, where you might be saving not enough, where you might be spending too much. And I'm going to offer some insights here, obviously, as well. And if in the clarity of my transparency offers you any value, just consider hitting that like button, folks, because let's kick this off by getting into that spreadsheet and breaking these categories down one by one, starting off with the stupidest amount of debt any human could ever, take on if we're talking about fast tracking financial independence, and that is credit card debt. Whether it's credit cards, student loans, auto loans, you will never fast track a lot if you are paying a mass amount in those monthly payments to somebody else, making someone else rich. And I took on a stupid investment thinking, hey, I could just take on some credit card debt, put it in the market, and if I know what I'm doing, I'm going to make money off the bank's money. That's something a lot of people tell you to do, and honestly, I'm going to show you why that's probably a bad idea. Now, coming into the beginning of the year, guys, I had about $10,000 from my $30,000 line of credit leveraged into a stock called Alibaba, and I was only paying about $20 a month to leverage that credit. The whole year, it only cost me $65, and guess what? I almost made $2,000 watching Alibaba go from the 200 range to maybe about 230, 240 range when I sold out. But the realistic idea behind this was I was actually gambling, because if I thought I was going to be a genius and I thought, hey, Alibaba's got nothing but a runway here and I can afford these $20 monthly payments, I would have watched Alibaba disintegrate down to $100 a share, where it sits today at about 130, vaporizing about 50% of the bank's money while I still sit here waiting for it to come back. This should be a prime example of why this is a stupid idea, and I even did it in the March 2020 crash where I wasn't making a lot of money. I saw some good opportunities, but to shine a light here, guys, I've been investing for 7 years, and this is the first time I've ever really used margin or debt in the markets. It worked out both times, but I'm trying to just point out the fact of the rarity of, those gambling timeframes where if I just waited a little longer, there's a good chance it probably wouldn't have worked out. So hopefully you don't do what I did there and you just work on saving money and then investing the money you have, not the bank's money. And I know a lot of people are going to argue that, but let's talk about the business side. And again, I'm going to break down some of my personal expenses because they're not included in here because this is just corporate expense. But let's talk about employees. Now, luckily for the first year of my life, I was taking on some pretty large contracts and I was paying out a lot of different people for different reasons. And I spent about $7,855 for Canadian private contractors. That's whether YouTubers, that's whether we're talking like graphic design artists, and that's just primarily for the media side of my business. And from the US side, where I was paying out USD, I spent about $7,000. Combine those two together, guys, you're looking at over $15,000 in private contractor works. I mean, damn, there was a time in my life where that would have been half my yearly income that I'm paying out. Absolutely staggering. So let's talk about the enjoyment sector, one that many of us take for granted, but we all have to have our little enjoyments in life. And I don't drink, I don't go out and party, I don't waste money as much as probably a lot of people do. And this, first and foremost, is the working side of my business. And the best part about this, guys, is I can write off due diligence. That usually is a lot of fun. Like VR, for example, I've been playing around on VR. I've had to buy some VR games and we're calling that due diligence. I'm a large Facebook shareholder. I need to figure out if VR is going to be a big thing for them. And luckily you can write that off. Heck, when I go out for dinner, we talk about business. A lot of that can be written off. So I only spent about $1,430, and you could probably slap on about another $1,500 to $2,000 for just going out from the personal side of my life, just with family, Christmas, stuff of that nature. But again, that doesn't get included in here. This is just corporate write-offs. Living and work goods. Now, I actually upgraded my entire working circumstance last year because many of you know I've been operating really frugally off an iPhone XR. I was operating off a laptop that didn't even cost $1,000 for 3 years, getting this business started up. But because I made so much last year, I'm like, I need more efficiency in my life because it was taking a long time to get this stuff to operate. Heck, rendering a video and uploading it was taking hours. And now I've managed to get it down to 20 or 30 minutes. So in here, guys, we can see I spent about $8,000 $265. Almost all of that is related to a laptop, a new phone, lighting, a microphone, just things that are just almost necessity at this point for my life. And this kind of expense is like a one-off. I'm obviously not going to be buying a laptop again next year. I don't really need a new mic. So that'll hopefully just be a one-time expense, which by the way, cost more than my car does, unfortunately, but well needed in my opinion. So let's keep moving on because at least these are write-offs. Let's talk about the food category. Now, food, obviously, I bum a lot of food, guys. I'm always at my girlfriend's parents' place. I'm at my parents' place, bumming food left, right, and center. This is just the food expense I would kind of wrap up under my business, which only equaled $626. I probably spend the least amount on a food budget than anybody, you know, bumming it off parents all the time. But hey, man, I live in Canada. The real estate here is bonkers. Trying to live here is insanely expensive. So you kind of got to get ahead somehow. And it's nice that we have family that are helping us do that. So let's continue on here. Let's talk about bank fees. Now, you guys know I complain about bank fees all the time. I operate a lot with U.S. income and foreign income, and you guys can see here that on the U.S. side of my income, I spent $1,883 in bank fees. Primarily a huge chunk of that coming from PayPal. I won't use PayPal anymore because what they do is if you're taking in foreign income from somewhere, they don't let you put it into a foreign account. So I have a US bank account. If I make USDs, they won't let me deposit that USD into my bank. They force me to convert it, and then they charge me anywhere from 3 to 5% for that conversion, which is nuts to me. So I told PayPal to generally F off. I don't want to use them anymore, and I only do direct deposit anymore. And honestly, I really wish crypto would stabilize because I'd much rather get paid in crypto and only pay like 60 cents on conversions. Like, this is nuts. But on the Canadian side, I spent $421. So between these two bills, I almost spent like an entire month's worth of income just paying the bank and PayPal. Ludicrous, like absolutely ludicrous. So this is one aspect of my life that I'm highly fixated on fixing. And I think it's really prevalent. Everyone makes a spreadsheet like this because it really helps you pay attention to where you're getting ripped off. So let's continue on, guys. Ads. Oh, ads, and websites. So many of you know for my business, I operate websites. I do a lot of YouTube advertising, Facebook advertising, TikTok advertising. And this is a huge facet, a huge upsell to a lot of my business. So we can see here, I spent $6,325 on those ads, guys. And for websites, some of you guys know the websites. I mean, the chartmaster.com. I don't really advertise a lot of my other websites because they're used for different facets of my business, but I spent almost $2,000 just on websites. Combine those together, guys, there's another $8,000 in expenses just for websites and advertising. Like, oh my God, this is really starting to add up. Let's talk about the one that I've been kind of arguing with people about lately, and this is going to be really controversial, and I want to know what you guys think about this, but let's talk about my vehicle expenses here because this one's a fun one, all right? With gas, I spent about $823. With auto repairs, I only spent like $72 last year. My car's been relatively reliable. It's a used car. I bought it for like $8,000 said and done on the road, and my insurance was $1,224. Now, my insurance, guys, I pay upfront once a year because most people don't realize when you're having a withdrawal every single month that the insurance company actually charges you for that, and they charge me $10 a month for a monthly withdrawal. So I paid it up front, saved an extra $120 a year. But the stupidest thing is a vehicle, guys. A vehicle is one of those things that will absolutely ruin your chances of fast tracking your financial independence, and it's the only place where people justify the most dumbest expense you could make. I mean, I've been listening to people say, oh, well, a car, guys, I can't buy a used car. I need to buy a new car because a used car isn't reliable. And it's just like, are you a moron? You know, that used car, that new car you bought is now a used one. You get that, right? That car you've been driving for a year, you bought brand new, that, by the way, you paid the most amount of taxes on. If you purchase or lease a $30,000 car, you're going to pay tax on that. I mean, let's talk about insurance. How do you pay the most amount of insurance on a vehicle, guys? Oh, that's right. You buy it brand new and finance it or lease it because guess what, guys? The auto company says, oh, you don't own this car? Well, you're going to have to pay all these premiums in insurance in case you collide it or write it off. You know, you got to pay those premiums on the insurance company. When you buy a new car, there's only two people you make rich, the dealership and the insurance company. And I don't know what it is with people, but I could beat my head against the wall trying to explain to people why that's such a huge mistake. My $8,000 Canadian dollar car that a lot of people say isn't reliable, which by the way, over the last 10 years, I've owned 3 used cars that don't equate to more than $25,000 in value. This car cost me a total of what? $2,120 a month, excluding maybe an extra $500 that I would have spent on personal expenses, guys. you still around 200 CAD a month. If your bill is more than 200 CAD a month, I'm sorry, but you're a complete moron if you're driving a vehicle that you're spending 500 or 600 a month on. However, that's from my own kind of trying to fast track financial independence mindset. But if you're somebody that has $1 million net worth, if you're somebody that's making 6 figures a year, the rule of thumb with a vehicle is it shouldn't cost more than 30%. The cost of the vehicle shouldn't be more than 30% of your take-home pay. So if your take-home pay is $100,000 in a year, go ahead, you can buy a $30,000 vehicle. But if you're only making, say, $40,000 a year, that vehicle shouldn't really be costing you more than $10,000 to $15,000. If it is, you're just going to be hindering your future financial independence, guys. And like I said, I don't know what it is with people, but somehow they try and justify these payments to themselves when it's an asset that will be worth $0. Let's say you could have bought a used car for $10,000 instead of buying a $30,000 car. You would have retained $20,000 in value. You would have paid way less on insurance if you bought it with cash. You would have paid only tax on $10,000 instead of $30,000. All that retained capital invested in the market over the last 3 to 5 years would have perpetuated into insane returns. You would have pretty much doubled that $20,000, guys, because the market's been AWOL the last 3 to 5 years. I mean, it's just so weird to me how people justify these expenses. And it's just my personal opinion. It's not even my personal opinion. It's just raw facts. I mean, I hang out with guys that are worth tens of millions of dollars that own Lambos, Audis, Aston Martins. And you know what they told me? They don't finance or buy their cars finance whatsoever, or lease them or anything. They're like, even these rich guys I hang out with are like, I don't know why broke people are always financing vehicles. I'm driving a Lambo and you know what? It's worth more than I paid for it. So I'm going to sell it and invest it because, you know, a Lambo is a stupid investment, but at least I own it. Like the stuff that I hear from rich people is so astronomically different from broke people. But again, guys, I'm not trying to be too controversial here, but people are dumb when it comes to vehicles because they just get used to being coddled by dealerships. I've never been to a dealership. It's just so funny to me for some reason. I don't know, but phone and internet. Let's talk about these bills real quick here, guys, because the phone and internet bills, these ones are a little bit more intriguing, I'm sure, compared to most people. This comes back to the same point. Don't finance a phone either, guys. If you cannot afford the car you're buying, if you cannot afford the phone you're buying, don't buy it. If you can't buy it with cash, don't buy it. It's just smart. I mean, it's just smart, unless you want to make, again, the dealerships, the insurance companies, the credit card companies rich, because that's all you're doing. But my phone bill, guys, $549. I usually pay this once a year in advance, 6 to 12 months in advance, because I don't like making monthly bill payments on my phone. And considering I buy my phone outright, it's literally like a $40, $45 a month payment. So that's pretty good. And then on the internet side, this is one bill that's been very wonky. I use it for my personal expense, and I feel like I pay way more for internet than most people do. Sorry, not personal expense, business expense. And because I live in a rural area, internet costs more to get reliability. And because I switched to a new internet provider, I was very hesitant on exactly like paying bills up front, because obviously if I change providers or if something happens, I don't get that money back. You want to keep in mind that if you plan on paying these smaller bills in advance, that typically they'll credit you, but they won't refund you. But bringing all of this together, folks, after arguing and just kind of debating with people about autos and credit card debt, I'm still going to come back to that point of reference, guys. The only debt you should ever have is in a mortgage. And if you don't, then don't try and worry about fast tracking your financial independence, because you're hindering yourself hugely. And I don't have to be a Dave Ramsey here, but I mean, come on, guys, you're smarter than this, right? I mean, take a look. I spent $40,000 in expenses on my business last year. And if you guys want to see how much money I made, if you want to talk about the income side of the business, well, 2 things you're going to have to do. Subscribe to the channel and let me know what you think in that comment section below. I just want to know if you guys found this entertaining, if this interests you, if you learned something, and if you want to see how much money I made, because obviously for me to spend $40,000 a year, I had to have justified it. And it definitely was justifiable as I finish up my taxes kind of coming into the end of this year. So let me know what you think. Stay cool, stay awesome, and I look forward to catching you in the next one.